world, Krista here for another Friday 5. I hope that you all had a fantastic week or are having a great week whenever it is that you watch this. Today for Friday 5, I'm going to be telling you about 5 of my favorite books that I've read so far in 2017. This has been a great reading year for me. I think every month I've read at least 7 or 8 books, some months a little bit more than that. So I've had a lot of really good books that I've been reading so far this year. I'm gonna choose 6 books that have kind of risen to the top of the pack. So these are the top of the top. I'm not gonna put them in any kind of an order quite yet. I will wait till the end of the year to rank books from my least favorite to most favorite. So these are just books that have, for whatever reason, become favorites of all the books that I've read from this year so far. So for an honorable mention, and because I can never pick just 5, I'm going to talk about The Martian by Andy Weir. I'm a little late to the game. Actually, I think I'm a little bit late to the game on most of these books, but The Martian was a book that I read in March, I believe. I was pretty sick during that week, and this book broke through my illness and still brought me so much joy. Mark Watney is the main character. He ends up being stranded on Mars, as you probably already know. I really enjoyed this book. I loved the humor that was in it, and I loved that even though it is very scientific at times, it didn't become a burden or didn't lose me intellectually. I didn't feel like I got lost in all the science, and I still stayed pretty connected to the story of Mark Watney and what was going on in his attempts and success at survival for so long by himself on Mars. So yes, this is an honorable mention. Another favorite that I have so far this year is a book that I just read last month. It is Wonder by R.J. Palacio. I loved this book. I knew that I would, from what I had heard from other people. It's about a little boy named Augie who has a facial deformity, and he's in 5th grade and has been homeschooled his whole life until now. This is the story of him going to school for the first time. I really loved all of the characters in this book, and we do get to hear from a couple different perspectives, which was really interesting. Some other kids in the school and how they respond to Augie coming to school for the first time and meeting him and becoming friends with him. I loved his parents. I loved his sister. I loved that they fought a little bit too. We saw their humanity and it just seemed so real. I loved the theme of kindness and the importance of being kind and looking beyond outward appearances to really get to know the people that are around us. I loved the theme of love and acceptance and family that were all in this book. So yeah, this was definitely a favorite of the year so far. Another book that I read quite a few months ago, I think it might have even been January. This was the first book that I chose for my Goodreads read-along group, and that is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. I was really unsure about whether or not I would like this book. This is about a woman named Agnes who was the last person, I believe, to be executed in Iceland. And everything that people kept saying about it said that it was kind of slow-paced and very atmospheric. Those are not buzzwords of things that I'm like, oh yeah, I need to read that book, I'm gonna love it. While I did want to read it, I was very hesitant and actually had quite low expectations. So the fact that I loved it and that it greatly exceeded my expectations pushed it up into the favorites category for me. This book is pretty bleak and pretty hopeless. I mean, it's historical fiction. This woman is gonna get executed. You know that from the beginning. However, I loved that this author, Hannah Kent, was able to make me feel hopeful and make me want things to change for Agnes. Even though I know the outcome is gonna happen, I still had so much hope in the midst of this bleak, dreary, cold, barren Icelandic setting. And the people were cold and hard-hearted and had their walls up, and yeah, in the midst of all of that, I still had so much hope that things would change, even though I knew they wouldn't. So I really loved reading this book. The third book that I loved this year is another one that I read just last month, and that is Lilac Girls by Martha Hall Kelly. This is another one that I chose to read for my Goodreads read-along group. This is another historical fiction, and it is set during World War II, which is definitely a buzzword for me. I love World War II historical fiction. I love when an author can get my emotions involved, and Martha Hall Kelly definitely did that. This book is about 3 women in very different places at the beginning of World War II. So Caroline is a socialite in New York City. Agnes is a young Polish girl who ends up getting sent to Ravensbrück concentration camp, and Herta is a German doctor who also ends up at Ravensbrück concentration camp. I felt the horror of it and anger and frustration and eye rolling at some of the choices that are made. I love when my emotions get involved. This is definitely among my favorites so far this year. The fourth book that I'm going to put on this list of favorites is Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. Homegoing, as I'm sure you know, is another historical fiction. Surprise, surprise. It starts telling the story of two sisters in Africa. Throughout the book, we end up going back and forth from the next generation to the next generation between each of these branches of the family tree. It's a huge scope in this book, from hundreds of years across 2 different continents. Every chapter is almost like a short story because it just chronicles the life of the next person in the family tree. And it could have been very confusing. I know some who have listened to an audiobook felt pretty confused by it. There was a family tree in the hard copy of the book that I kept flipping back to find out where we were and to keep things on track in my mind. I just was super impressed with the scope of this book, and I was impressed that within each chapter, Yaa Gyasi made me feel connected to each of these different characters. Of course, there were some that I liked better than others, but I felt like I learned so much, yet I didn't feel like I was bored in the learning. I was very into this story. I was in it. It was a very good read. It was hard at times, but I loved it. The fifth book that I'm putting on this favorites list is yet another book that was one of my Goodreads read-along group picks, and that is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I really loved this book. I knew I would, and I don't know why it took me so long to finally pick it up and read it. In Station 11, there is a flu that wipes out a great majority of the population. We follow a couple different characters from before the flu and then immediately following the flu, but then also 20 years into the future. And there's this band of people who travel around performing plays and a symphony. I loved how the author wove together details from these 3 different time periods in such a beautiful way. The characters are woven together. I thought she was an expert weaver of information and story. It was so beautifully written and yet so captivating and exciting and heart-wrenching too. I feel like my emotions did get involved. I've talked about that with some of these other books, that being emotionally connected is super important to me in my favorites. That's what makes a book a favorite for me. So she did that as well in Station 11, and I loved it. So those are the 5 or 6 books that are my favorites so far this year. I would love to hear what are 1 or 2 or 3 of your favorite books that you've read so far this year. I know the year's only half over, and I'm really looking forward to finding some more favorites. It's gonna be hard to beat these ones because these are pretty fantastic. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you liked what you saw, and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. I will be talking to you very soon in another video. Bye!